Okay, once we understand that evolution is an outcome of a process, and the process or the mechanism is natural selection. So, and we will look at the difference between the two. So keep in mind, natural selection is the mechanism and evolution is the outcome. That is the best definition that I've seen so far to explain how evolution arises. There were two biologists or naturalists at that time. We talked about Darwin. Another person is Alfred Wallace, and his papers are also very important. And Darwin and Wallace proposed similar theories around the same time, and eventually their book that was written on the origin of species, there was a lot of things that there were in common between the two biologists. It was clear by both of them that evolution is an outcome that takes place over a certain time period. And the famous book, if you ever get a chance to read Origin of Species, it was published in, I think, in 1850s, and it has sections that are really interesting to read because not just Wallace, Darwin has his own personal notes written in there too. Uh, Lastly, remember, populations evolve. So here's a population of all humans, and that will evolve with time. Individual, one person cannot evolve, and we're not looking at one person evolving. That doesn't make sense in the theory of evolution. So what are the conditions for natural selection? The first condition for natural selection is that variation in the species must be present. For example, if you look on these images over here, you see moths that is light colored, and there's a moth that is dark colored over here. Notice that the dark colored moth is more visible in the light colored background. However, the light colored moth is not visible as much. Similarly, on the dark bark, the white is more visible and the dark is not. So over time, which of them would you think will be survived? The predators will probably eat the white one over here and the dark one on this background, and eventually in those areas where these are present, they will get less and less in number. So over time, what will happen is regions that have the dark colored bark will give rise to the dark colored moth in abundance, and those will be the one that will survive it. And similar would be the condition for the white or the light colored moth in a light colored bark. So these traits were already present, and these traits were heritable. So it's not that the black moth evolved from the white moth. The variation was there. Secondly, he also said that more individuals are produced than can survive, which explains why, for example, frogs will lay eggs, and there'll be dozens of eggs, and there'll be dozens of spores that are given out, but each egg or each spore that is given out from different organisms does not arise to a new individual or an organism, and that's because only a few can survive because of the environmental condition that are met for certain eggs. And also his other condition for natural selection is that certain traits are advantages, which means that certain adaptations are more advantageous to the population of the species that is existing there. So back in our case, the white moth is that colored is more advantageous to the species of moth that are present in a white environment. This actually happened in England after the abundance of coal that they were using, and how certain buildings were getting dark, and they found that the white moths were then getting extinct in those areas. So natural selection will take place based on the environment. Let's look at the present day observation, or a fact about natural selection that we can look at an example from every day, and that is antibiotic resistance. And the recent scare of MRSA. MRSA stands for methyl-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus is a bacteria that is present in our normal flora. Overusage of antibiotics have forced the bacteria to resist the antibiotic, and it has now become as the superbug, which is the MRSA, and it's very infectious, especially among the intensive care ICU patients. It's a nosocomial infection, which means that it's an infection that is acquired during a hospital stay. So, or usually lately, sometimes you will hear in the news about certain pool or certain areas that are common. Sometimes this organism is getting present in these areas, and it's a really big CDC concern because this is the best example that we can see right now showing that an organism has evolved and evolution is taking place. Of course, more of the individuals that are of MRSA that can resist that drug, any kind of bacterial drug, are advantages to that population of the Staphylococcus aureus, and that is why they will be resistant to it, and it will be advantages to the population.